I want to thank the New York State. Thank you, the New York State Assembly. I just, for someone who loves freedom and sees 2020 as hopefully a referendum of continuing the trek of less regulation, more freedom, this this is wonderful. You've done a great job here, New York State Assembly, and I just want to be the first to thank you for solidifying what's going to happen in 2020. And I hope more on that side of the political persuasion follow this model because it'll just further solidify what will happen in 2020. So let's just dive into this. And yes, this is political. Oh no, I am not like these other guys out there. My man Devin, who shy away from most politics. Look, politics is in my blood. It always has been, always will be. One of the first pictures of my life was sitting on my mom when she had me in one of those backpack things, and you could see me with a hat on in the freezing cold Maine protesting against the Wiscasset nuclear plant. I was probably 1 year old, if even that. And it's always been in my family. It always has been in my blood and forever will be. Gus Hall, you might not know who Gus Hall and Angela Davis is, but I do because I was raised in politics, all right? Now, my politics have always been more of the libertarian bent. But, you know, something like this will lead me back to the hopefully less corporatist Republican Party as we go forward. And I think Trump is hopefully leading the way in that, and more of a freedom-minded, Main Street, independent Republican Party, which puts the issue of the Main Street voter before Wall Street. If we can do that and change the Republican Party, which I think we're doing, it's a wonderful thing. And of course, if the Democrats keep going this way, it just solidify the Main Street of America taking back the power that has been ceded to corporate interests by 16 years of Obama and Bush. And I mean, look, we could go back to George H.W. Bush for sure. The corporatist interest of the Republican Party has been dominating the quote-unquote right for many years. Trump broke that, which is wonderful. You know, Clinton was a political genius, so he did wherever, I mean, he just went to the path of least resistance in bipartisan way, and I actually give him credit for that. But the corporatist interest of the Bush dynasty, and then the left-wing mantra of Obama that government can take over. It's just, for anyone who's freedom-minded, we've seen how bad this has been with the Department of Justice, the FBI, and things of that nature. And it's actually pretty interesting to see a realignment of some left-leaning people who see big government as just inept, and right-leaning people who see big government not only as inept, as bad. So it's interesting seeing this kind of the false dichotomy being challenged by left-leaning people on social issues and right-leaning people on of economic issues kind of coming to terms here. And I think that's going to be the basis for a successful 2020 for sure, which will keep the freedom march going on and get rid of the statists in the Republican Party and hopefully the ones that are represented here in the Democrats, because the Democratic Party of the days of yore are gone. Don't forget, you take Jimmy Carter and you take Richard Nixon, who is more freedom-minded. A lot of people say Nixon could not be further from the truth. Jimmy Carter deregulated a ton of stuff. Planes, airlines, trucking. He deregulated commissions on stocks. Just a lot of deregulations under Jimmy Carter. What did Nixon do? The EPA, the wage and price controls, the getting off the gold standard, all that whole thing, the gold standard. So Nixon, big government. I think even Nixon, there's another thing he expanded, and I forgot what it was. Nixon, increasing government. Carter, decreasing government. Thankfully, you know, under Carter, we had, even Ted Kennedy was along for the ride. The problem is once they lost power, though, then they had to fight tooth and nail against Reagan, and that was a turn of the Democratic Party going from the JFK of low taxes to what we have now, which is just insanity run amok. Which is not good because they're ceding the center to the Republicans, and now we're going to have to fight tooth and nail against the corporate interest of the Republican Party, which is always there, waiting for their chance to take over and selling us on a false bill of goods that, hey, if it wasn't for us, the corporate interest of the Republican Party, the socialists would take over. And we've now seen that simply not the case. George W. Bush, an honorable man, liked his speech at the 9/11 thing when he said with the bullhorn, that was freaking wonderful. But at the end of the day, the corporatist Republican Party dominated. No other way around that, and hopefully now that will be changed. But we got to keep on, you just got to keep on defense to make sure that the corporatist are taking a back seat, and the Main Street interests take a front seat. And we shall see. But anyway, with stuff like this, it'll just solidify that. So New York Assembly blocks free tuition for more Gold Star families. And here we got soldiers kneel to pay their respects on 7 June 2007 in Iraq to Staff Sergeant Travis Atkins of Fort Drum's 10th Mountain Division. He was killed by a suicide bomber in Iraq. A bill in the New York legislature would provide free college tuition to family members of the New York service members killed in the line of duty. And I'm not seeing my unit up there. The cross rifles mean it's an infantry platoon, and I see D company, I should say. I'm not sure what unit that was. I wasn't in Iraq, but I was in 187th Infantry, and we were as Bravo Company, so I don't see that. But anyway, that's an infantry unit right there. So 12 years ago, these guys are. If you ever been in one of these ceremonies of a person, of a soldier's lost, killed, it's man, you cannot help but cry. It's nuts. Anyway, so let's read this real quick. New York lawmakers refused to advance a bill that would have provided free college tuition to the families of all military personnel from the state who were killed in the line of duty. The Assembly's Higher Education Committee voted 15-11 to table it, effectively killing it. The move comes a week after lawmakers passed a $175 billion budget that included $27 million to provide for college tuition for illegal immigrants. They killed the bill to provide for free college tuition and room and board to family members of service personnel killed in duty. But instead, they advanced and passed a bill to provide for $27 million for illegal immigrants. Just let that sink in. It's disgraceful, says Gary Finch. The children who, okay, let's get that. For Democrats, including Assembly, some voted against their party lines. One of the bill's co-sponsors said in an interview that after the vote, he sensed the Democrats simply didn't want the bill to pass because it's authorized by a Republican. And, in this day of bipartisanship bickering, we can't give the Republicans a win. Barkley estimated that fewer than 500 New York college students would be eligible. The state would pay for tuition for children, spouses, and financial dependents of New York military members killed in action to attend SUNY and CUNY schools. That'd be, New York State Oswego, Potsdam, City University of New York. The recipients would receive free room and board, tuition, and through a merit scholarship provided by the state. The Democrat initially had no comment. They have since commented saying it wasn't just for the kids of service personnel killed in action, killed in duty. It was for any service personnel because, the friends of mine who were killed in helicopter crashes, they don't warrant free tuition. But certainly illegal immigrants who have done nothing but break the law do. Yeah, okay. It's fantastic. So if you're killed in training accidents, no. New York says you don't warrant it. No, but if you just come here illegally, hey, welcome. You get free tuition. Anyway, there you go. So thank you. That's I don't know what to say. I'm at a loss for words. Just from a pure political thing. I've never seen the Democrats not want to spend taxpayer dollars. I literally don't understand it. But I appreciate it because normally I don't think I hide my political persuasion. I'm a libertarian, Republican. I lean on the right. I don't believe in drug prohibition. I don't care if you want to get married to the same sex. Don't care. If you want to smoke dope, don't care. I think taxes are too high. They should be reduced. I do believe in a safety net, so I do have some left-wing leaning issues. What else am I? I do believe in trying to maintain the environment and the soil, and particularly the soil, because the soil has been devastated. So I think if you should use organic as much as you can. I think you should try not to use Monsanto pesticide as much as you can. Absolutely. What else? I do believe you should have your own solar PV panels, not because I am worried about CO2, but I do think there is some self-sufficiency that's wonderful for you who are worried about the grid, when you should be for sure. And if you can reduce pollution too, it's a win-win. I don't believe that CO2 is going to kill us all, but man, if you can reduce it, it's not going to hurt anybody. Yeah, so I have some left-leaning. I do believe in a universal basic income. That guy, Andrew Yang, I don't believe in anything else that guy talks about, but I think you got a universal basic income, just a voucher, say every single, I don't want to say the term, we say the military, but person in the United States will give you $10,000 a year, and we're going to get rid of all other safety nets. It's a wonderful thing. I don't have a problem with a thing for a public option for people with pre-existing issues on health insurance, that the government provides some support. I got no problem with that. I'd be willing to be convinced that these wealthy guys should pay some kind of tax. I got no problem with that either. I don't know what it is. Ben Stein, certainly not a right winger, a left winger by stretch, says, look, at some point, Jeff Bezos and these guys are going to have to contribute more. I got no problem. And I don't know what it would be. I mean, my goodness, it's easy to say I got no problem with that. I'd have to want to see it. But, man, I got no qualm with that whatsoever. You want to raise the cap on Social Security? I don't think that'd do good. I think it'd hurt the upper middle class more than anything. That's usually self-employed personnel. But if you want to say, look, if you're making more than $2 million a year, you're going to pay more on Social Security. I got no problem with that, because those are hedge fund managers who are just pushing paper from point A to point B. No problem. They're not creating value. And by the way, I'm sorry, if you're making more than $2 million a year, you're doing okay. Let's put it that way. So if you can throw another, couple, 10 or 20,000 more in your tax code, that's not going to hurt. Anyway, all that stuff I'm willing to be convinced for sure. On vaccines, I'm more on the left side. I'm not convinced that we should be mandating vaccines. Let's just put it that way. So a lot of things I'm on the left in some regard, but when it comes to this stuff and on freedom, the left isn't for freedom anymore. Those days are gone. You can just look at it. They're going after people for what they posted 30 years ago. There's a guy who sings in a band from the late 80s who sang in a band that was considered right wing. They ran him out of his job literally just a couple years ago for being a food critic. I'm like, what the hell is this? This is nuts. Oh, I mean, and yet we had John Brennan, who literally voted for the Communist Party in the 70s, was the head of the CIA under Obama. So some dude sings for a freaking rock and roll punk rock band who is right wing. He can't have a job as a food critic, but a guy who voted for the commies in 1970s can be the head of the CIA. Bill Ayers, who literally wrote an article on September 11th that was written on an article in 2001 about he wished he would have done more terrorist damage, was Obama's go-to. I mean, this is just nuts. I mean, the left is a creeping, and these aren't left of the days of the hippies. These are a radical totalitarian left, and it's got to be defeated. And this is part of the parcel of why I appreciate New York doing this, because it reminds people just how radical these people are. And they've got to be defeated. And unfortunately, that means that the fall, they're going to have some corporatist Republican, unfortunately, after Trump. And that's not good. And I hope we get a guy like Thomas Massey in 2024, a congressman from Tennessee. Because the days of Jeb Bush, I'm gone. I'm done with that. I'm done with that. I'll take, well, we'll see what happens. But anyway, all right. Just want to say thanks, New York, for contributing to the cause of freedom in 2020. And we'll see you next time.